Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul, the podcast that transcends the boundaries between science and spirituality. Prepare to be uplifted, transformed, and awakened to create a path to healing your own life physically, emotionally, and spiritually by bridging the gap between science and soul. Are you ready to rewrite your energetic blueprint and break free from inherited patterns? Hi, I'm Dr. Lori Valentine, physician, psychic medium, and ancestral healer. And I'm excited to introduce my new self-paced online course, Healing the Mother Wound, Rewriting Your Emotional and Energetic Blueprint. In this transformative journey, we'll explore how ancestral imprints shape your emotions, relationships, and a sense of self, so you can release old wounds and reclaim your power. Your healing begins now. Step into a new paradigm of freedom and wholeness today. Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul. Today's guest is Lori Dyan, a celebrated tarot reader, ritual expert, and author of the instant bestseller, Burn Your Shit, The Life-Changing Magic of Rituals. Featured in Vogue and named a summer must-read, her book is already in reprint, inspiring readers to release what no longer serves them and reclaim their power. With over 30 years of experience, Lori works with a global clientele, from stay-at-home parents to celebrities and CEOs. A proud member of the Peguis First Nation, her ancestral roots are the foundation of her magic and rituals. Lori leads transformative retreats at Canyon Ranch and speaks at corporate events for brands like TikTok, Chanel, Pepsi, and Fairmont Hotels. On Instagram at tarot.lori, her card of the day and full moon fire rituals draw a devoted worldwide audience. So welcome, Lori. I am so delighted to have you as a guest today, and I can't wait for you to share your knowledge with the listeners.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you are such a tarot reader. Like, you've been doing this for 30 years, doing this tarot card reading. How did you end up? How did you get on this path?
Well, it's something that I was always very interested in, the metaphysical, the paranormal, that kind of thing really interested me, whether it was, UFOs or anything that was sort of out of the ordinary, any kind of metaphysical. And I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. In the 80s, I was a teenager, sort of, mid to late 80s, and there was this psychic that everyone knew about named Erica. And because there was no Google, there were no computers, you had to know someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew Erica. And she did tarot, she did she had crystal balls, she read palms, she did astrology, she did everything. And everyone saw Erica. And the first time I saw her, when she pulled her tarot cards out, I was immediately just enthralled. I'm like, what are those? Tell me more. And the way she laid them out, the way they told the story, I just was fascinated by them. And that was sort of the spark of it. And then she eventually became my mentor in tarot as well. And she's a legit witch. She has all the things, does all the stuff. So it was an oral, it was like in the oral tradition. We just would sit and talk about tarot, and we'd go through every card. And so I got to know the cards really well, and also through the lens of her experience and also her approach, which was very fun-loving and joyful and engaging and not scary, not cheesy. So it was a beautiful, beautiful way to learn about tarot.
Wow. So you've been doing this basically your whole life.
Yes, I'm actually, the deck I have is 35 years old now. So I've been doing it for quite some time. Every reading I've ever done is in this deck.
Wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I know your tagline is, woo woo without the cuckoo. So
Yes.
can you share what that means? And, how does that shape your approach to tarot?
Yeah, well, I think it gives people a sense of my approach to tarot right off the bat. And just harkening back to what I just said about Erica, my approach as well is I always tell people, inspire, empower, and enlighten with a reading. And when you say, woo without the cuckoo, it sort of gives a sense that this is what I do for a living and I do take it very seriously, but I'm not goofy about it. I'm not going to be giving false predictions saying you're going to meet Bob at Starbucks on Wednesday or say goodbye to grandma or anything scary like that. Tarot gets sort of a bad rap in popular culture. So the woo woo without the cuckoo is the shorthand so people know what's up when they get a reading with me.
I love it. I love such a good slogan, because it really gives people the idea what's going on there. So for people who are new to tarot, and they don't know anything really about it, they know it's
Mhm.
reading cards. How does it work? Can you tell us a little bit about how it works?
Sure. I mean, cartomancy is like oracle cards as well. There is a difference between oracle cards and tarot cards. Oracle cards can be any number of cards. It can be any kind of theme, any kind of messaging. There's usually a full message on each card, and it tends to be more sort of a prompt for your day. Whereas tarot is a system. There are 78 cards. There are always 78 cards. There is a major arcana and a minor arcana, and these 78 cards each have a different picture on them. And these pictures each tell a story. And then when you put these cards together, they tell the story of you. And it's again not prophecies, it's not a scare tactic. It's more just giving you, I always say it's like a little peek behind the curtain so you can see what's going on energetically in your life. For me, it's from now to 6 to 9 months out. And then whatever someone chooses to do with the messages they receive is up to them because they have free will. So it's never, you must do this on this day. Ugh. It's nothing like that. I always say it's like having a conversation with your soul. And I'm the interpreter through these cards. And tarot, it's kind of like life coaching yourself. A lot of people make that analogy.
Yeah, and so it can be a really good tool
Mm-hmm.
to sort of figure out what's going on, like you said, behind the curtain. Like, why is it that I'm at this crossroad? Or why is it that, what are those energies that are moving through that person's life? Um, so can tarot answer any question that, the asker is asking you? Like if they say, I have two job offers and I don't know which one to take, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to move and I could either move here, or I could move there. Like, can the cards answer that specific a question, or is it more
Right.
general guidance?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question because people ask me that all of the time. And tarot is never, there's no tarot card that says check your pancreas or you're moving to Ohio or you're going to be a librarian. Like that's goofy. These cards are again to sort of show you the energetic landscape. So and there are not any yes or no cards. So should I do this versus that isn't the best way to ask a question. So I always tell people how they frame a question is really important. Instead of saying, is Fred the one? I would say, well, what do we need to know about Fred? Or will I get that job or which job should I take? What do I need to know about option A? What do I need to know about option B? Or better yet, I'll just say, what do I need to know about my next career move? And then it usually gives you guidance that leads you to the answer that was there all along. You just, for whatever reason, were resisting it, or you just didn't see it in that moment. These cards are very randomly specific and specifically random. So the same card can resonate with 10 different people in very deep and personal ways and very different ways. And that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, the cards have this kind of a mystical way of bringing messages to people.
Well, that's
Uh,
kind of what I'm looking to
yeah.
dispel, actually, because I don't want there to be any barrier to entry for
Mhm.
any of the work that I do, whether
Mhm.
it's rituals or tarot. And when people are asking these questions, you don't want to abdicate responsibility of your life to some random lady with cards.
Yeah,
You want to empower yourself
yeah,
to
yeah.
make the best decision for yourself
Mhm.
moving forward. So
Yeah.
these cards are really they're a tool of self-discovery, they're a tool of
Mhm.
validation, they're a tool of self-help.
Mhm.
No one leaves a full reading with me without
Mhm.
getting some sort of homework.
Right.
There's always work to be done. I get it myself. So
Yeah.
we are never tarot's never done
Yeah.
showing us how we can still do work to become the best version of ourselves, living the best version of our life possible.
Mhm. So many people are curious, right, but skeptical about tarot, or maybe even cards in general. What
Sure.
are the biggest misconceptions that you encounter working with people?
For sure, the biggest misconception is that they're some sort of tool of the devil or that they're evil or they have, scary connotations and can do curses and things like that. That is bogus. My favorite saying to people is that there are no bad tarot cards, just bad tarot card readers. And it's all about intention. If my intention is to scare the bejesus out of someone with these cards, sure, I could do that because some of them look kind of scary, especially the original Rider Waite Smith deck, which most people are familiar with. There's the devil and the tower and the moon, and they have
It's-
daunting looking images.
Mhm.
But the messages, the death card is one of my favorite cards in the whole deck because it's not about physical death of a plant, a person, an animal, nothing like that. It's about transformational change. What makes that card scary for people is how they react to change, how they respond to change. If you resist it, it's going to still be great in the end, but the process is going to kind of suck.
Mhm.
If you're open to change, you can make it a lot easier on yourself. So that's an example of how a card that's used, usually in popular culture, because it looks it's interesting to see someone, dressed in scarves and the earrings and all the bangles, and they're shuffling the deck with the crystal ball under the moon. Like, ooh, it's very beguiling to see an image like that. But the truth of tarot is a lot more pedestrian,
And
but still
how,
magical. Still magical. I don't want to. They're not magic,
yeah,
but they are very magical.
right. I mean, there is something magical. I do card readings, but not tarot. And I find that sometimes the cards, the messages that come through with the cards are often much clearer than any other guidance. I don't
Hmm.
know, it's just
They
fascinating.
cut through the BS.
Yeah.
Tarot's not interested in necessarily like sparing your feelings or
Mhm.
softening
No.
hard lessons you need to learn. And it just cuts to the core. So it feels like I always say tarot's constantly like trolling me. Well, I pull
Yeah.
a card of the day and think, okay, tarot, message received. I get it. Like I am not meditating. Thank you very much. So thanks for
Right.
telling me again I need to.
Right.
These messages meet you at the moment you're in.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Um, because sometimes you get the same if I do a reading with using cards with
Hmm.
somebody, it's you get the same, and we do several different kinds of readings, but the cards, for some reason, it doesn't matter how much I shuffle, will come back in the next. It's like they're hammering the message in, and it's just
Uh-huh.
this kind of I don't know, it's just this magical way that the cards somehow end up being shuffled in the right order, right? It just feels like that because the cards keep coming back, and the message, regardless of what I do, comes back to be the same. It's like the cards are saying, "Didn't you get it the first time? I already told you this is the message." And
Well,
then you do it.
yes,
Yeah.
that's a
So do you
hundred
see that,
percent.
right? Do you see that when you do tarot?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
and
then
when you're saying, I've already seen this. I've got the message. My response to you would be, did you really get the message? Have you done anything with the message? Have you
yeah,
dug a little deeper with that message? Because the card is repeating for a reason. And I always say too, each of these cards has a different story to tell, but sometimes they share a thread or a through line. So when I sound repetitive or thematic or like a broken record in a reading, it's because the cards are going like, do you get it? Are you listening? Are you really? You really are getting that sort of. I always say it's like the cards are taking a couple of trash can lids and clunking you on either side of the head like cymbals in an orchestra, just to make sure, like, did we stutter? We want to make sure you really hear this because we don't want you talking yourself out of it in 20 minutes.
yeah. So it's fascinating. So you see that too, and it's just you
Uh-huh.
can't ignore that because it just happens over and over again. It doesn't matter. It's almost like every time I use the cards, that's exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can't change it, right? And um, we did it during the pandemic, and we would have these specific questions, and it didn't matter what we did with the cards. We shuffled them on the floor, that spread them out and shuffled them, and we would still get the same same message,
Yes.
the same cards.
It's
And I mean,
wild.
how do they end up in that exact same order? Right? It's absolutely fascinating. There
Mm-hmm.
is something very I was gonna say magical about about doing card readings because they somehow get the message across to the person,
It
right? And
is
the way you
yes.
shuffle and the cards you're gonna draw,
Yep.
it's fascinating. So I know that you have, First Nation lineage.
Mm-hmm.
How has that influenced the way you practice tarot and rituals? We haven't even talked about the rituals yet.
Right. I think that my indigenous heritage, I didn't grow up in an indigenous household. So my mom is Peguis, my dad is Icelandic. So we all look kind of Norwegian. And and it does though, and I sort of resisted because I didn't want to you know I didn't want to be performative in my work. I didn't want to be culturally appropriating um my lineage. And also, I realized that I can't deny it. I'm very connected to the earth. I'm very connected to the natural elements. And oh, I got goosies just talking about it. Working with that sort of energy and honoring it is is the cornerstone of my work. It's not that I'm out there, going to powwows or any other kind of like cliche that doing anything that would be just icky. It's but when I smudge or when I talk about smudging with sage, I will tell people about the origin of sage and how indigenous cultures use the like I explain why I do what I do in my work when it's connected to that indigenous lineage, and I honor it and respect it in doing that. And I think everyone needs to do that, not just with indigenous sage, but Palo Santo, from South America,
Mhm.
any kind of, working with runes or anything. You need to respect the culture from which it originates.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, how you tap into the magic of it. So it's something that even though I was separated from that culture to a large degree, it's still it's this, I always say it's the source of my magic.
How long did it take you to learn the tarot cards?
Well, 35 years and counting. I feel like I learn something from every reading that I do. Every reading has its own vibe or fingerprint or tone, even a one card reading, which is why every reading is fascinating. And my interpretation of the cards is still evolving. You develop a dialogue with your deck over time, and a lot of my card interpretations have nothing really to do with the Tarot 101. And that's okay because that's what they're meant to do. They're meant to be a mirror for you or the people you're working with or an extension of you. And so my work with tarot is ongoing. One thing I tell people all the time, which gives everyone a giggle, and I'm not exaggerating at all. This is really true. I've had this deck for 35 years. I teach workshops. I've written a book about it that's coming out. Like I am an expert in tarot. I absolutely stand by my abilities with extreme confidence. And also, if you ask me right now to tell you what the 9 of Swords is, I could not do it. I could not, I can't think of which card is the 9 of Swords or the 7 of Cups. I don't know. But if you show me, because I haven't memorized them that way, but if you show me one of those cards, I'll talk about them for hours. So
Mhm.
it's not about memorizing cards and trying to memorize interpretations. It's about learning the story that the card wants to tell.
Do you feel like the information just comes to you when you do the reading? Or
Well, there's definitely a channeling aspect. Tarot is my tool to access that. I don't really need my cards to channel when I talk to people
Mhm.
anymore. And it took me a while to realize that tarot was definitely my security blanket for that, thinking I needed them. But with a reading, these cards, there is a core interpretation for every single card that I don't deviate from. I'm very intentional about the words I use. And then when you put the cards together, or depending on who I'm reading or the circumstances or just what comes through, I'm always off-roading a bit, and bringing in extra information, or it will be sort of like a launch pad to talk about something else that just channels through me. But that core message is always there.
yes, it's so fascinating, right? And you you see the card and it's like there's the information, right? But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people might think, they have to memorize the cards or
Mm-mm.
what does that card mean? But it's like you see the card and then it just comes. You know
Yeah,
what
you
it
just you
is, you
just
know
need
what
to
it is
get
for
to
that
know the
person.
card, you just
Mhm.
need to get to know the story behind the card. And I always tell people when they get a deck, take learn there's a chapter in the book, I call it Tarot Tinder, how to get to know your cards, and you pull a card every day, and before you look at any interpretation in a book or my book or online, you just look at that card and sort of sit with it. What is it telling you? Does it make you feel a certain way? What about the colors? What about the symbolism? What about the number? Is there anything there that's speaking to you in a certain way, or what kind of feelings or emotions does it evoke in you? And then write that down, journal about it for a second, and then put that card down, go live your life, come back at the end of the day, pick that card back up and have a look and just reflect back on your day in how the message of that card showed up, and once you're done journaling about it, then you can check the internet or the little booklet that comes with it or my book or whatever to sort of see how it might differ or be aligned.
Mhm.
And then, but seeing how it showed up in your day at the end of the day, that's a way to really instill and deepen your relationship with the meaning of that card.
Mm. So people that are listening that say, "Wow, this is fascinating. I want to learn tarot cards."
Yes.
What is the best way for people to, get into it?
I think you just go and get a deck. And wherever any store in your area that sells crystals will probably have decks. And make sure that if you're interested in tarot, make sure that it's a tarot deck and not an oracle deck, because like I said earlier, they're different. They're just different foundationally. And as long as it has that major arcana, minor arcana, the minor arcana has four suits. Usually it's cups, swords, coins, and wands, but it can sometimes be, kitty cats or unicorns or whatever, an artist has determined they want to apply to it. And then just pull a card every day and then do what I just said. Or you can ask specific questions. What do I need to know about this person? What do I need to know about work? What do I need to know right now? And just start pulling a card. And that, I think, is a lot more, it's a lot less intimidating than thinking like, oh my God, 78 cards. And then it's like every day's a math test or something.
I love that. And so it's so easy for people to learn about it, because they can just start by pulling a card, and
Mhm.
then
That's
I'm
right.
sure there's all these different spreads that they can learn to do as well.
Yes, but I think nothing beats a good 3-card spread.
Mhm.
I mean, the spread that I use that was developed by the witch, so it's very unique, and she taught me that spread, and it's since evolved into my own thing. So you'll never get a reading like mine because the spread is very unique. Um, you can do that whole thing, but 3 cards tells a whole story. It could be past, present, future, emotion, physical, spiritual, past, present, future. It could be whatever you want it to be. Or it could just be, what do I need to know right now? Pull 3 cards and then look and see how they sort of fit together to tell you the story. That seems a little bit more advanced. Celtic Cross, which everyone goes bananas for, I hate that thing. That gives me a tummy ache just looking at it. It's the most complicated, convoluted. No, thank you. I have no interest.
I love that. And you make it sound so easy too. Like people can just learn it so easily and just start with one card or three cards.
Mhm.
And then, you learn as you go along. I love that. And I love how you said, people, you get familiar with the card and kind of look at the card. What is it telling you?
Exactly.
Right. I
Yeah.
love that. So we're going to talk about your book next. So your book, and I see it on the bookshelf behind you, Burn Your Shh.
Yeah. My
Hopefully you
friend's
won't get
my friend's son is 8 and he says, "Ooh, is that your book? Burn your shiitake mushrooms?" That's how he gets around it. But yeah, burn your bleep.
right. And it's all about the power of rituals.
Mhm.
Now, why do you think that rituals are so transformational?
Because humanity is rooted in ritual. We can't survive as a species without ritual, whether it's blowing out your birthday candles, dancing around a fire before the big hunt, sacred ceremonies, in religious institutions, christenings, marriages, death. Our humanity requires ritual to help us make sense of the world, to help us make sense of ourselves, to help us connect to ourselves, our community, the divine. It's rich. We are all doing rituals. I mean, the word might scare people a little bit. You can call it a ceremony, or you can call it, a habit infused with loving intention, whatever you want to call it. Um, or if it's a work performance thing that you do with your team, going out in team building or doing some sort of the little rah-rah thing they do at Walmart before they open the doors. Like these are all rituals. We are all doing rituals all the time. And again, with my work, I want to help people understand that they're already doing rituals. And then when you get intentional about them, how powerful and potent they can be. And they can really incite and instill lasting, profound change.
I love that. And I know that you have a ritual that you do at specific times on
Hmm.
Instagram. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, the working with, again, the rhythms of nature is a really easy way to incorporate rituals into your life. But again, doing your skincare, making your morning cup of tea, those can be ritualistic as well. And what I really love about my book is that there's science behind it. It's not just, go dance naked under a full moon if you want, great, whatever floats your boat, but also understand that there is science backing why these rituals work, the psychology of ritual and the proven effectiveness of them. And so this book, everything from how to start and end your day with rituals, um, celebrations to mark certain moments of life, but working with these lunar rhythms, doing rituals with the full and new moon. It's a beautiful opportunity every month. There's always a reminder. It's always happening. If you do it and then skip it a few months, that's okay. It's still going to be there next month. Um, when you work with the full moon, it's when the moon is reaching the peak of its power and then it releases. So we harness those lunar vibes to help us release and let go of what no longer serves us. So that's the burn your shiitake mushrooms of it all, where we write down, I now choose to release whatever it is, and then as you light it on fire, you say, and so it is. So I now choose to release, ba 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 ba, light it on fire, and so it is. And as you see those words disappear before your eyes, and you're being intentional, you're taking action, writing it out. Um, there is something very cathartic about that, and also empowering. I'm always saying in my readings, you have to pull the weeds so you can plant the seeds. So burning what no longer serves you, whether it's a pattern, a belief, a person, a house you want to sell, whatever it is, um, if you can put some closure to it with ritual, that can be really impactful. And that's pulling the weeds, right? And then we plant the seeds under a new moon. A new moon is beautiful for manifesting because new moons are new cycles, new beginnings, fresh starts. So we tap into that kind of lunar energy to support a manifesting ritual. And I always tell people you can, burn your bleep under a full moon or manifest under a new moon any day of the week, any time of day. You will not feel worse. But again, just aligning it with lunar rhythms gives it a little extra oomph in my experience.
And on Instagram, I know you do things like you read people's messages that they send in or
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's what's really interesting because during COVID, I've been leading moon rituals forever. And during COVID and quarantine, because up here in Canada we were all locked up raw for a long time, and so I just started doing these full moon things on Instagram Live, and it would be me and five other people, and three of them were relatives. And then I started to gain more of a following, and my business, it sort of exploded. It expanded globally at a really rapid rate, and now this full moon fire ritual that I do every single month at the full moon, 8 p.m. Eastern, Instagram Live, doesn't cost a thing. You just show up and watch. And what's really cool is I started putting the call out for people to send me what they wanted me to release on their behalf. And so I write everything out by hand. And I now understand it's channeling, but I do what I call reframe. So someone might send me something that says, I now choose to release 10 pounds from my butt. And it's like, is that really it? And so a reframe of that would be, I now choose to release being at war with my body. Right. Or I now choose to release my mother in law. She's a pain. Okay. Well, it's not magic. It's not like bippity boppity boo. We're not cursing anyone. But instead, we could say, okay, I now choose to release prioritizing what other people think of me ahead of what I think of me. You see how that different that is and how
Mhm.
empowering it is. You're stepping into your agency in those moments. And what's really cool is that people send me stuff from all over the world. People join this thing from Kuwait and Kenya and Panama and Utah, Alaska. And what's really cool is someone from, let's say, Norway sends me something to burn. I might do a little a little reframe on it. And I'm reading it during the experience on Instagram Live, and I'm reading it thinking like, oh God, it's like I wrote it for myself. And then you're watching wherever you are in the world and you think, oof, this tracks. Oh yeah, I'm feeling this. It is as much our release as it is Norway's release. It's this collective coven. We are in that moment holding space together. So it is a very unifying experience. And there is science backing why that is. Although the fact that it's happening on Zoom and we're all feeling goosies and we're all like have tears in our eyes at some points and we're all just really getting impacted by it is the magical part.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so interesting, right? You're reading it, somebody else's release, and you're like, wow, this is kind of what I need to do too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a really
And it,
interesting.
yeah, and it helps people feel less alone too, right? Because some lady in Kenya is speaking what she's ready to let go of, and you're in Houston thinking, "Oh my gosh, wow, we are more alike than we are different," which is
Yeah.
really lovely too.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how sometimes people hear somebody's just tuning in to your channel on Instagram and you're releasing these things that people
Hmm.
have sent in. And then all of a sudden they realize that they carry that same issue, right?
That's
And
right.
then it's like, wow, I'm releasing my own issue just by tuning in and listening.
Yep.
So it's really interesting how we're, like you said, we're all together in this.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the power of ritual is how it can impact you in ways that you're not even aware of.
mhm. What's one simple ritual that people can do that are listening?
Oh, the most transformational thing you can do is breathe. I always tell people if you start and end your day with breath,
Mhm.
and before you get out of bed, maybe turn your alarm off if you want or whatever, but take 5 breaths where you inhale through your nose and exhale out your mouth, and inhale for the count of 5, hold for the count of 5, exhale for the count of 8. In for 5, hold for 5, out for 8, 5 times in the morning, 5 times at night. Don't do it while you're brushing your teeth or, watering the lawn or anything. It has to be very intentional, sitting or lying down. And when you do that exhale longer than you inhale, you're automatically activating your parasympathetic nervous system. You're toning that vagus nerve. So you are you can't help but transition from a place of fight, flight, freeze to a place of rest, digest, create, strategize. So it just calms you and to just recalibrate your energy at the beginning and ending of the day. And then if you think about it, like every time you go to the bathroom or have a drink of water, maybe do it again, stop, drop, and breathe, that is a ritual that can absolutely change your life. And it's free.
I love that. It's just a physiological response, right? If people just
Hmm.
do the
But it's
exercise.
But you're also taking that. So it is absolutely that. And then where the power of the ritual comes in is that you are taking the time to do that. Even though it's just a few minutes, it can seem a lot for someone when I first tell them to do this. They're like, I don't have time for that. You have time for 5 breaths in the morning, 5 breaths at night. That's three minutes of your day or less. And what you are declaring to the universe is that you are worthy of that time and attention on yourself. And that is part of what creates a shift as well. So
Yeah,
they're
I love that. It's
layers.
so easy and doesn't really take any time,
Yeah.
right, to do that. You say there's a ritual for everything from,
Hmm.
bedrooms to boardrooms and death to divorce. What's
Yes.
one of the most surprising rituals you've developed?
I think that rituals around grief are really important because we suck at grieving as a culture for the most part. Um, we're really good at celebrating births and anniversaries and weddings, and then divorce and death, we suck. And so anything around divorce is always pretty magical and freeing. And I don't want anyone going and throwing their wedding ring in the lake. Don't do that. Melt it down and or sell it and take the money and go on vacation. But to do a ritual burning of a marriage certificate, for instance, or folding up your marriage license and putting it on a boat in the water, make a little like paper boat, like a little Viking Viking funeral. It can be helpful. But rituals around people who or pets who have died or who are in palliative care, there are rituals around grieving before people pass. They can be so comforting and unifying, and they can really help. They don't speed up the process of grief, but they allow you to access your grief so that you're not stuck in the trauma. Well, I'm covered in goosebumps talking about it. My friend's dog died recently, and so I was asking her, okay, what are you doing about it? And you can have these beautiful moments, whether it's just you or some people you love, to just honor your pet. Altars are wonderful. Doing any kind of altar for anything is great. It doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to have a special cloth. You could go get some pine cones from the woods or just light a candle and put some mementos out, but just you are dedicating some space to whatever that is that you are celebrating or mourning. And then you take time, whenever you're called, to just sit in that space, light the candle, breathe, contemplate. That's the power of ritual, is it's making you present. It's making you in the moment, which always leads to more fulfillment.
I love that. Such good advice. And I know you have a new book coming out that's going to be releasing later this month. And it's called Big Deck Energy.
That's
And
right.
it brings tarot into the mainstream, showing people how the cards how the cards start a conversation with the soul,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's just such a beautiful concept in itself. What inspired you to write this book, and who is it for?
It's the book I wish I had when I was starting tarot, if I didn't have Erica the witch guiding me. And even though I had Erica, again, I couldn't be with her every day. I couldn't call her every time I had a question. So this is the book I wish I had. It goes into the history of tarot, but in a really fun, lighthearted way, which is it's the woo woo without the cuckoo approach to it all. It talks about choosing a deck, cleansing a deck. Is it even necessary? Getting to know your deck, different spreads, different tricks to, not tricks, but tips to learn, the story of the cards, how to do spreads, how to ask questions. And then, of course, an interpretation of every single card, which is actually the smallest part of the book, is the card definitions. You can get standard definitions online for free. I'm not interested in passing that information on, but it's my interpretation of the cards. Um, that is expanded upon here. And I also, in for some of the cards, I show examples through little stories from my life of that card's meaning in practical application. So a little story about, like, here's an example of how the magician could show up in your life. And what I love about this book too is that you don't even need a card deck to work with tarot with this book. You can just flip open to one of the pages of the cards, and that's your card. Just like you would shuffle and choose a card, you flip open a page and, oh, there's my card. That's my message I needed. And it's really interesting how people who've had advanced copies have tried this, and they're just like, what's happening? How is this? How is this possible? What's going on? So I think it's everything you didn't even realize you needed to know about tarot. And you don't even need to be a tarot reader or want to be a professional tarot reader to benefit from this book, because it's a tool of self-discovery, just like just like any ritual is. Every self it's if you watch Super Soul Sunday with Oprah, or see any other, metaphysical masters, any kind of self-help books, all of the lessons that they talk about can be found in tarot cards. It's wild. That's one reason that was the impetus to start the book, because I thought, what the heck? I mean, everyone is talking about, oh, that's the tower. Well, that's the high priestess. Well, that's the chariot. I would see in everything people were talking about the tarot of it. And so I decided to sort of bring it together.
I love that. I can't wait for your book to come out. Um, it sounds so fascinating. I want to learn more about it myself now. So, what is the most profound or unexpected tarot reading you've done? Like, as you're working with clients, we all have
Mm-hmm.
stories of things that came through that we didn't expect, or just kind of get stuck in our minds. Is there any story or
I
that you can
mean,
share?
every reading has a moment where I just go, wow, or, to myself thinking, wow, that's so cool. Because people, I don't usually know more than their first name when we do a reading. I don't know anything about, I don't ask any questions, except I do ask people if they're married or in a romantic partnership, because it just helps me sort of cut to the chase with how the cards are working together. Um, but I don't know. There have been times where there's been a message of someone saying, pay attention to the details. And I'll say, again, because I'm pretty consistent and intentional with the words I use, I'll say with this certain card, um, if a mole looks weird, go get that checked out. Like, that looks kind of funky. And afterwards, a woman said, you gave me that card and I did have a funky mole, and I checked it out and it was malignant and I needed to get it taken out right away. And I would never have seen it without that reading. That was crazy. Things like that. But people always have pretty profound experiences with my readings. So I get feedback from people, but it's not like one stands out, because they all kind of stand out.
Yeah, fascinating. Um, And now I'm really curious because you said that, we could pull cards for
Yeah,
the
for sure.
audience.
Of
So
course.
whatever, I'm going to leave it up to you. Whatever you want to, pull or question, card of the day or the times or whatever it is that you
Yeah.
want to bring.
Well, let me just shuffle the deck. You're going to hear me
Yeah.
shuffle. And
Yeah.
then I'm just going to ask what we need to know right now. That's what I do with card of the day
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so fun. Yeah. Take your time. I know you have to shuffle probably
I'm just trying to
until.
make sure I don't jiggle my microphone and make it not work anymore. So let's just ask, what do we need to know right now? And the thing that's cool is that, ooh, it's a good one. The thing you need to know too is that even though you're hearing this message today and this episode will come out much later, when the message finds the person, it's when it's meant to find them. That's what again makes it sort of magical and wild because I do my card of the day, but Wednesday's card someone might not see until Saturday. And yet that's exactly when they needed to hear the message. So it's pretty
Absolutely
cool.
true. I hear you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I always say as well, there are no bad tarot cards, just bad tarot card readers.
I love
And
that.
so there are certain cards that can look a little scary. I mean, the death card, everyone wants to pee themselves when they see it, but it's not a bad card. It's one of my favorite cards. And this card that I've pulled for us, which I'm not showing you yet because it needs the preface of saying kind of like the death card. This is one that everyone goes, "Oh," when they see it, but it's not a bad card. It just looks kind of like, "Oh gosh." So it's the 10 of swords. And if you see it, the 10 of swords, the guy's lying in the swamp. He has a bunch of swords sticking out of him. He's done. It's dead. It's over. And this is, again, never physical death. No animals, plants, people. It's not about someone expiring. This is a card of endings. Okay. And none of this part with him with the swords looks fun. Like no one's enjoying that. And that's because when endings happen, even when we know they need to happen, it can still suck because change can be difficult. So this could be leaving a studio apartment to move into your dream home. And it's the greatest move ever, but still super stressful. And so that's the uncomfortable looking part of the card. Now, in the distance, there's this dawn breaking over the horizon. And I always tell people with this card that it wants you to focus less on the inherent discomfort that comes with change and endings and focus more on that dawn in the distance that's telling you there's something better waiting on the horizon. There's something around the corner, but you have to create capacity for it. You have to make space for it. Kind of like feng shui, you have to clear out all of the crap and clutter so the good mojo can get in and move around. So whether it's the ending of where you're working, where you're living, friendships, relationships, you eating dairy, like whatever these endings are, try to embrace endings despite the kind of feelings that come with any kind of endings, because these endings are making space for better beginnings. Always.
I love that.
See?
It's so fitting. I mean, the numerology wise, right? The earth is in a 9 year. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like things are coming to an end and there's a new cycle that's coming in next year. So it couldn't have been more
Mm-hmm.
fitting with.
Well, and that's the thing. It can apply to the micro, to the macro.
Yeah.
And I tell people
Yeah.
with tarot, astrology, all of this kind of stuff,
Hmm.
take what works and leave the rest.
Hmm.
It's not necessary. It's not 100% fortune telling crap from the movies. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's more just and also again for my readings, this may plant a seed where someone hears it and thinks, well, nothing's like ending right now that I know of. Don't get freaking out thinking you're gonna, lose your job or anything. But it just sort of plants that seed of like be okay with ending so that down the road when one does inevitably show up, you're like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, I'm gonna try and like be okay with this. Because I often say with this card, because it looks so doomy gloomy, I often give examples so you can see how it can be sort of subtle. It could be, oh my God, the company went bankrupt, or it could be, oh my God, I got laid off. Or it could be, oh my God, my manager left and I was getting prepared for that promotion. Now I have to start from scratch with the new guy. And then a few months in, you realize the new guy has even better plans for you. And you think, oh, I'm kind of glad that first one left. So it
Right.
can be more nuanced,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's
I
not
love that.
necessarily,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I love how, you're moving out of the condo to your dream house. Like there's something that's coming to an end, right? And
Yeah, it has to make
yeah,
space for the better beginning.
right. I love that. Um, and how can people, learn more about you or work with you and book a session with you, find your
For
books?
sure. Yeah, everything is on my website, which is tarotlori.com, tarotlori.com. I'm also on Instagram as tarot.lori, tarot.lori. That's where I do my card of the day and my the full moon ritual on Instagram Live every month. And then I have all sorts of different, retreats. If you want to book a reading, book me for an event or a party. I do all sorts of workshops and whatnot. you can check out my website.
I love that. And we're going to make sure we put the links in the podcast notes as well so people can easily find you and
Wonderful.
go, look at her book that's coming out and the book that's already out. And we'll make sure we put links to your books as well so people can find those easily.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it has been such a pleasure to have you as a guest today and share your knowledge about the tarot cards. Very fun. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I've had a blast. This was fun.
As we conclude this episode, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence within my community. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share this podcast episode. Join my free newsletter in the show notes and receive new podcast episodes delivered right to your inbox. If you resonate with the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and are motivated to embark on a journey of personal healing, I invite you to connect with me at drlotte.com. Together, we can pave a path towards transformative healing in your own life.